Hello everybody, welcome to stylemehannah. I'm Hannah. On this YouTube channel we are going to be talking about all things sewing, all things fashion, DIY. I thought what better way to start the YouTube journey with a video that I wish I saw before I started sewing. So grab yourself a coffee, grab yourself a snack. These are the 10 things I wish I knew before I started sewing. So just to give everybody a little bit of a background, I studied fashion retail management at university. I took a sewing course very briefly when I was about 8 years old with my gran, and we sewed like a quilted bag kind of situation. Didn't really sew much thereafter, but when I studied fashion retail management, I had to do a design course as like one of the modules to complete my degree. So I was kind of thrown into it. Started sewing again about 3 or 4 years ago, so I've got a little bit of experience, so I thought I'd share basically what I had to relearn. Number one is that you don't need an expensive sewing machine to start sewing. You can find sewing machines secondhand on Facebook Marketplace. You can go to thrift stores or charity shops and maybe someone's donated theirs. I found my very old Singer sewing machine on our community WhatsApp page. It was a very basic machine. It had very basic stitches. It wasn't digitalized. There's no point of you going out and spending money on a very expensive machine if you're not even going to be sure that you're going to enjoy your sewing. I would recommend that. Look on Facebook Marketplace. There are so many amazing sewing machines there. This one over here I actually got off Facebook Marketplace. It is worth 34,000 Rand, give or take, and I paid 6,000 Rand. See what your needs are in terms of what you want to get out of your sewing, and then you can look for a machine based on that. Tip number 2 is that you can thrift pretty much everything that you need for sewing. And this is personally my favorite thing to do. I love going to charity shops, and I love specifically the SPCA in Durban and Kloof. If you live anywhere near there, they have a specific sewing thrift shop. All the sewers donate their stuff there, and they've got fabric, buttons, zips, oh my gosh, anything that you could need, elastics. I get 90% of my sewing supplies from that little shop over there, and I rarely ever go and buy things brand new, especially when you're in the learning stages of sewing. You don't want to go and spend so much money on textiles and fabric, which is quite expensive to buy brand new, and you end up making a mistake, or you stress and you freak yourself out because I just wasted a whole bunch of money. So I would really recommend, if you're starting out sewing, go to your thrift stores, go buy patterns, see what patterns they have. They've got elastic, they've got buttons, zips, anything that you need, they will have it there. Obviously, if you are needing something very specific, then you might need to go to a sewing shop, just because you'll know that they will have what you're looking for. I've walked out there with black bags full, and they have cost me about like 300-400 Rand of masses of fabric and everything that I could possibly need. So definitely go check out your local thrift stores for any sewing supplies. Tip number 3, I would recommend starting off with small, easy sewing projects. I wouldn't jump in straight into making garments or clothing. You need a little bit more understanding of sewing when you jump into those projects, and when you go into something that's really difficult as a beginner, you're going to just set yourself up for failure, and it's not going to motivate you to continue learning. You're going to get fed up and you're not going to want to touch your sewing machine again. So I would recommend just kind of starting off nice and easy with like a scrunchie or like a tote bag, something that's fairly easy. I spent pretty much the first couple of months of my sewing journey making pillowcases, and I learned a lot from doing that because it's very basic and Allows you to learn your machine as you are making something pretty cool that you can have afterwards. When I started sewing, I wanted to try and make clothes, and when I jumped straight into buying a pattern at the thrift store and I started making garments, I was so overwhelmed. I had no idea what I was doing, and it demotivated me, and it honestly doesn't make you want to sew again for a while. So start off nice and easy, start off slow, and get that little dopamine hit of actually succeeding at what you're trying to do, and it will motivate you to keep going and learning as you're going along, and that is very important. Tip number 4, if you are unsure, YouTube it. There are so many YouTube resources out there now, and there's books that you can buy. It's better to know how to do something in sewing than wing it, because 9 times out of 10 it's gonna end up not working out in your favor, and then you've kind of wasted your whole project. So take 2 minutes, take 5 minutes just before you're about to do your project, or if you come across something that you're not sure of, just YouTube it and see how they do it. And it could be something so quick and easy, and you'll be so glad that you took that extra time to make sure that you know what you're doing. Tip number 5. Take your time when sewing. Sewing requires a lot of precision, and if you're going to rush it, you're going to make silly mistakes. I've learned that it's better to take little chunks of your project day by day and to end up with something that you're really proud of and that you've put your all into. When I've rushed a project, I've either given it away, used it for scraps, or maybe worn it once or twice. It's just not worth it. Tip number 6, invest in good quality scissors. You really do need to be precise when you're cutting. It's the first step of your sewing of your project, and it really does need to be accurate. If you got blunt scissors, it's not really going to work for you. It's going to end up not cutting the fabric nice and neatly, and you'll find that your pattern pieces will shift, and therefore you're off on a rocky start before you even touched your sewing machine. So invest in some good quality scissors. These will only be used for your fabric. No ribbons, no elastic, no threads. You have your fabric scissors for only your fabric, and then you have your little snippers or little scissors for your threads, and then you just have like a craft pair of scissors. You also get rotary cutters, which you can use on a board like this, and that also is a way to cut out your pattern pieces. Just depends on kind of what you're going for. Tip number 7, sewing is 90% prep and 10% sewing. You really do spend a lot of time away from your sewing machine when you have a project going on. Sewing is like a little blip. You kind of whoop and then it's done. Really take the time in your prep. Make sure that your pattern pieces are cut out nice and precisely. Make sure that you are ironing as you're going through. Just really take the time to get your prep down. And that leads me on to tip number 8, iron your projects as you go along. Never really thought ironing was that important, so I used to sew my projects and then get to the end and do like one big iron. But what ends up happening, your sewing becomes inaccurate, and I know it's annoying, but again, that goes back to take your time with your sewing and kind of chunk up your project so that you allow time for this ironing. Really, just every time you sew a seam, or maybe 2 or 3 seams, go ahead and press your seams. It's going to make your garment just like so much better at the end of it. Tip number 9, I wished that I kept a journal of all of my sewing projects when I first started sewing. This just allows you to really actively sit down and reflect on what you have made, what worked, what didn't work, and it makes the learning process so much more tangible. I have started doing that now, and it really makes such a difference, because when I go back and I want to sew that same thing, I can see exactly what mistakes I made and what to avoid. It just makes the process so much faster and just better quality at the end of the day. Tip number 10, guys, and this is a very important one that I'm still learning to accept, and that is sewing is a practical hobby. The way that you learn the fastest is through making mistakes. So when you come across a project, which I'm sure you will, that doesn't end up working out in your favor and you just want to throw it in the corner and forget about it, you've got to just take the experience and the lessons learned from it. You might not have something tangible to show for it, but you really have learned invaluable experience from that. It's kind of like that whole thing of you learn what not to do, and that is something that is very frustrating, but is something that really, really does help you become a better sewer. Every sewist at every level makes mistakes, and it's just the way that you learn and you get better and you know exactly what not to do next time. And that kind of ties in with the whole journal thing, is just keep a journal of your mistakes so that you know and you can better yourself. And you'll find that the mistakes get less and less and less each project, and that's just purely because you're being conscious of what you're doing. You're not just zooming through something. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This is my first video, so I'm sure you probably noticed. I'm sure it will get better as I get more comfortable with this whole situation. But I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you took something away from this video. Basically just here to share what I know and learn from you guys. So if you have any tips that you thought of that I didn't mention, please mention them down below. We are all here to learn from each other, and I just want to create a really cool community that we can get creative and inspire each other. So go ahead and drop some tips down below, and I think other than that, guys, I'm gonna see you later. Bye. Doggy barking. Yeah. It is so hot. Why is it so hot?